Welcome back to Bird of the Week. This is episode 3, and today is a very special episode. A couple of you guys suggested some birds, and the winner this week was the pigeon. Now, there's a lot more to the pigeon than I think a lot of people realize, so this is a very special episode today. We're going to learn a lot today together, and I'm very excited to share with you. So first things first, as I always do, I'm going to start with why I wrote this song. There's a lot about pigeons that I'm going to talk about today, and one of the main things that I'm going to talk about is their history, and more specifically their history in terms of their relationship with humans. And I think it is sad, to me upsetting, and a little bit just kind of shocking, the trajectory in which our relationship with pigeons has gone. And so I wanted to show some old footage of some pigeons, in a time where humans really appreciated pigeons and were using them to our advantage, and we're actually forming relationships with them beyond just making them do tasks for us. And so I wanted to highlight this kind of beautiful time in history, reminisce on it. I wasn't around for it. Probably a lot of you weren't around for it either. It was 80 or so years ago, maybe a little bit less, but yeah, so the history of pigeons is quite sad. That's why I wrote that song. So let's get into the history. But before we dive into the history, let's dive into some fun facts so that we can contextualize everything that the history will dive into. So, first things first, pigeons have an incredible sense of home. Now, the term homing pigeon comes from the fact that pigeons, pretty much no matter how far they fly away from home, they always know how to get back home. They can fly over 1,000 miles away and still figure out how to get home. Now, how do they do this? I don't know. Scientists don't seem to know either, based on my research. So it seems like kind of a really cool mystery how pigeons are able to do this thing, but it's a very cool thing about them. Another thing about them is that pigeons are very, very smart. They're not as smart as corvids. We talked about corvids a couple weeks ago. Corvids are definitely one of the smartest birds. Pigeons aren't quite that smart, but they're, somewhat similar to a dog level of smartness in that they're able to form bonds with both each other and humans. They're able to, figure out things based on context clues, not quite as well as corvids, not nearly as well as corvids, but they have some ability to learn. And it's proven because of their ability to be trained. Humans have trained pigeons, and it's been proven scientifically that pigeons, when they are introduced to new types of behavior, they're able to learn those behaviors and implement them throughout the rest of their lives. Now, what's also incredibly interesting about pigeons is they are one of 344 species under the scientific term of Columbidae. Now, these are all doves, is what all these birds are. So pigeons are actually called rock doves. Obviously, a lot of people, when they think of dove, they think of like the classic white dove that people like release at weddings and stuff. And interestingly enough, they have the same ability as pigeons, because they're all the same species, to just always find their way home. So that's what's really cool about that. When they release these doves at like these weddings or ceremonial events, the doves know how to get home and they just fly home. You don't have to keep track of them. They'll just go home. So if you establish where home is for them, they'll go back. And so because of this 344 species, there are a lot of really cool doves within this species. So I'm going to show you a few of them. First of all, they're separated into two different kinds, essentially. One being seed-eating doves and the other being fruit-eating doves. So here are some seed-eating doves.
The peacock ground dove, the white-winged dove, the classic mourning dove, and of course the rock dove.
I hope you enjoyed like my little accent there. You know, I just I'm trying my best. So that was the seed-eating doves. Now here are some fruit-eating doves.
The yellow-breasted fruit dove, the Mariana fruit dove, the Wampu fruit dove, and my favourite, the golden dove.
Now those are pretty darn cool. Am I right? I mean, what the hell? I mean, those things are really cool. And so those are just some fun facts about pigeons. And then also the greater area of doves. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of different looking kinds of doves. A lot of these fruit-eating doves, you know, you're gonna find in trees because they're looking for fruit, and fruit grows on trees, last time I checked. So they're usually up in trees. You can spot them more in trees. Now, seed-eating doves, like our rock dove, like our mourning dove, etc., as you saw, they are more sticking to the ground looking for food because seeds usually fall to the ground. And so these are some fun facts about pigeons and doves. And that's what this episode is about, pigeons and doves, and not just pigeons. But going back to pigeons, let's talk about the history of pigeons, because honestly, I think that this is what makes this episode so special, is the history. I mean, these guys have been through a lot throughout history. Now, before the 8th century, I'm not really sure what they were doing, but in the 8th century, well, that's when their relationship with humans began. So, the relationship with humans began in the 8th century. Now, you know, people were having pigeons as pets. You know, we said, look at this bird, this is a cute bird, we're gonna take it, we're gonna have it as a pet. And we didn't, you know, they were actually like, they weren't accessible pets either. So it was a type of thing where usually people in power, people with money, people with luxury for that time, were able to have a pigeon, or pigeons, many pigeons even, and they would build these big structures actually for them that we would refer to maybe as a birdhouse, although it's definitely more exuberant and elaborate than the birdhouses we have today, am I right? So they would build these structures that are really cool looking, as you can see, and they, you know, were celebrated, pigeons, as these pets, things that people would form relationships with. And then, of course, because of their incredible homing ability, if you happen to need to send a message and, you know, you didn't know how to do it other than with a pigeon, you would send it with a pigeon, because you know what? They didn't have email back then. They didn't have the postal service. They didn't have international mail. So, and they weren't sending messages internationally anyway, but they would send messages with pigeons. So it was very convenient for people to use pigeons because, you know, they could fly faster than we could walk. You know, they could, you know, they knew how to get home. We didn't have to worry about that. You know, we didn't have the postal service. We didn't have email. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. So it was very convenient for us to be using pigeons way back then. Now, people who, as I was saying, people of this high status, they were using them, and as time went on, they were used by royal people. They were used by a ton of different kinds of people, actually, messenger pigeons. Even eventually became more widespread, but really not that much of incredible note, and mainly for the purpose of this short episode, you know, really happened of note until basically the early 1900s. Now, in the early 1900s was also when world wars started to happen. So pigeons were utilized for their messaging ability in these world wars. And the reason that they were being utilized for this was mainly because, for two reasons. One, they always knew how to get back to base. So if you took a pigeon out to the battlefield and you need to send a message back to the base, as I was saying, homing pigeons and the fun facts, you could write a message, put it on a pigeon, that pigeon will fly back to home base and deliver that message. That will provide maybe some crucial intel for home base, or maybe would provide some sort of, you know, important message that could save lives, right? And so a lot of pigeons actually did save lives because of their messaging in World War I and II. The other reason being, if a human, you know, were to try to go and relay a message back to base on foot, it was likely they would get shot down because, I mean, frankly, the enemy is always looking for humans to shoot, as is. It's war. I mean, not that I know how war works, but, you know, what I do know is that humans are bigger targets. They, you know, don't move as fast. Pigeons move fast through the air. They're small targets. They're tough to hit. So now as a result of this, not only did pigeons save lives, they saved lives to such an extent that 32 medals of honor were given out to 32 pigeons for saving lives, delivering messages in the world wars. So they were a huge part of our war effort, being used by the Allies, you know, and that's sort of a beautiful thing. Lots of human life was spared due to these pigeons. One pigeon in particular, named Cher Ami, was able to save up to 200 people, reportedly around 200 people, delivering messages back and forth that would prevent people from going into situations in which they would otherwise have died. So this pigeon was given a Medal of Honor as well, and lost its leg and its eye to gunshot wounds from delivering messages. It was a very resilient pigeon, one of the most legendary pigeons of all time. Now, amongst other things, they were our companions and our messengers, and they saved lives, and at this point in history they were very cared for. There was one scientist, he was a psychologist by the name of B.F. Skinner. He was a psychologist, he was a behavioralist. He learned that, you know, if you can train pigeons to do certain tasks for us, we could potentially make them useful in other areas other than just message delivery. He also saw pigeons as a potential war helper in one particular way, which was he learned that he can train pigeons, rewarding them with food, to direct things to go into the right direction. So he thought, why don't we use pigeons to direct missiles at our targets? Because we didn't have, as humans, the technology that made for super accurate missile targeting. It didn't quite work out because we did end up developing technology that was better than any animal could be, and we could shoot missiles very accurately. So the other thing he wanted to use them for, though, was a very awesome thing, which was that via rewarding them with food, they were able to see underwater extremely well and find things and people that were lost at sea. So they would put them at the bottom of a boat with some glass so they can see into the water, and they would reward them with food every time they saw something in the water. And since pigeons have better eyesight than we do, they were able to spot something and peck a button that would tell the people up in the boat upstairs that they found something. And that also didn't really ever work out as a common practice thing because, we advanced technology beyond that as well. Now, there's a clear theme here in the history with pigeons, which is that it seems as though we only really used pigeons until they became useless to us. And so that eventually happened with the messaging system too, when we, developed a stronger postal service, when we created things like email, text messages, pigeons became irrelevant to us. We stopped caring about their use for us, and so as a result, we stopped caring about them at all. And now, through that time, we have just let pigeons loose. No one really has pigeons anymore. You sometimes see the guy at the park who just has surrounded by pigeons because he's feeding them. And look, we domesticated pigeons. We bred them. We made them, relate to humans. I mean, since the 8th century, we've had a very positive relationship with pigeons. So it's really, really unfortunate now how we have disregarded them. We've left them on the streets. We've left them on their own with no human help, despite the human help and human care that they had been receiving for centuries. And now they're one of 3 birds. It's the European starling, sparrows, and pigeons are the 3 birds that are not federally protected. The only 3 birds that are not federally protected due to their incredible commonness, and which has now resulted in a whole industry that makes their money off of the removal of pigeons. I mean, it's baffling to me. I mean, we have completely disregarded pigeons. We've completely let them free. We used to have this beautiful relationship with them. We used to care for them. And look, this goes into a deeper part of history, which is that generally with animals, and now doves are 344 species of doves. Like, there's a lot of them, so I can't talk about every single one, but most of these species are shrinking in population due to human expansion into their ecosystems. The human stripping of their resources, for our use. And currently, you know, most dove species are on the decline. Now, pigeons are not federally protected. No one cares about them anymore, which saddens me. Pigeons in particular, you know, with their relationship with us, I think they have a lot to teach us. So segueing now into our section about why do pigeons represent Asana Benche's values? Well, I think for one main reason, and that's relationships. Relationships in this world today are often very transactional. And we believe that relationships are incredibly important now more than ever, because relationships are actually becoming, if anything, more of a rarity than ever right now. There's a loneliness epidemic going on, and I think it's hugely due to things like our phones, things like AI, where now we could live in a world where we can be by ourselves, have conversations with technology, learn things from technology, so we don't need to go and talk to a specialist or learn something just from interacting with someone. And it's made everything very convenient. But not everything that is convenient is necessarily worth ignoring the thing that it's convenient for. For example, it's not good to just like never do math and not know how to do math, because if you completely rely on technology to do math for you and you have no sense of self and technology rebels, what are you going to do? You have no idea, right? But in relationship terms, look, relationships are incredibly important. And there's a huge depression epidemic, there's a huge loneliness epidemic right now because people are not making the effort to go and form real life relationships. Now, as musicians, we really, really deeply value relationships, partially because that's how we operate. We gain so much joy from making people happy, from helping people out. Now, of course, we need your guys' support in return to be able to keep doing what we're doing in order to fund things that allow us to keep making you happy. So we really value these symbiotic relationships where we can help each other be happier, you know? And that's what I think music is all about. That's what art is all about. We are expressing something about society, about life, about our experience in life, and you guys hopefully relate to that, hopefully gain some joy from that, or sadness from it, or some kind of feeling from it that allows you to feel. This relationship is important. And then your relationships with the people you love, the relationships with the people you don't know, going out in the world, meeting new people, becoming friends with people, learning, you know, that you don't like somebody, maybe learning that this certain trait in people is something that you do like or something that you don't like, learning about yourself through your relationships with people. You can't learn so much about yourself through a relationship with AI or through just surfing the web or through just getting stuck in your computer or getting stuck on your phone on Instagram, and then you're being told lies and you're being told all these different kinds of things from all these people who are also lacking their, you know, relationships, and we're just yelling at each other. We got to take ourselves out of that. We got to form real human relationships. We got to actually continue to foster these relationships, and it's not good to keep your relationships transactional so that when all of a sudden this person or this thing is not of use to you, you just completely disregard it, just like we did with pigeons. So, form your relationships. I've made my point here. Be nice people, form your relationships, go outside, and once again, thank you so much for supporting us and for supporting this series. I'm really happy that you guys are enjoying it. The feedback has been awesome. And so comment what bird you want for next week, and I'll hit it up. You know, I'm always looking for the next bird, so please let me know. And I appreciate all your thoughts, all your support, all your kindness. We have other videos on YouTube, so thank you. And with that, I'm going to send you out with the video one more time, as I always do. And happy dovin'!